Welcome to our March Crime Book Chat episode.
Yes, Kathy, I really love these episodes because it's such a mix of authors and genres. I mean, for today, we have widely different genres, I would say, from intense military thrillers to historical mysteries. But oddly enough, I found a connection that they all deal with large themes like terrorism and international intrigue. So at least we'll find some common ground there.
I'm super excited about this too, and I want to give you props because this format was your idea last summer when you and I were talking about the season as a way so we could talk to more authors, and it's been such a fun platform because it's just been so great to talk to everybody at once. So I'm super excited about this today, and it will be very
Yes.
informative and interesting, I'm sure.
Yes. Anyway, so let's get started with the introductions. I'll start out with T.R. Hendricks is a former United States Army captain who served as a tank platoon leader and then as a military intelligence officer, where he was an advisor to the Iraqi Ministry of Interior's National Information and Intelligence Agency. That's a mouthful. When not working or writing in his home in upstate New York, Hendricks is most likely reading, woodworking, or watching his beloved San Francisco 49ers. The Instructor is his debut novel. So, Tim, it's so great to have you here with us today. And why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about The Instructor?
Of course. So great to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for having me on and, breaking in this rookie on his, podcast route. But yeah, I am the debut author of The Instructor. It's out April 11th, 2023, just a few short weeks away here. Finally, thank goodness. Real excited.
It's going to
for
be
it.
so exciting.
It's all starting to hit now. It's all coming to a head. But the story centers around Derek Harrington. He's a retired Marine Corps officer who now works as a wilderness survival instructor, running his own bushcraft school in just outside of New York City, like in the Westchester area of an Orange County area of New York. And he's having a hard time. He's having marital issues and money issues, and his father is sick and in need of long-term round-the-clock care, and running low on money and running low on funds when out of the blue, one of his students approaches him with a proposition to make $20,000 in a month if he agrees to teach a private group in upstate New York. And Derek, pressed into the corner as he is, takes the job, only to slowly pull the thread and realize that the group he is teaching has more nefarious thoughts and an agenda that they're putting together. And he basically believes that they're a domestic terrorist cell. And from there, he has to put all of his skill sets into play in order to prevent an attack on American soil. So
it sounds very almost very realistic and also very scary and
yes,
thrilling.
Yes,
I love the title too. That's just a great title.
I can't take the credit for that one. My wonderful agent,
anyway.
My wonderful agent Barbara Poel of IGLA. She's like, all right, we're changing this title. I was like, oh no, you can't change my title because it's a series and there's this naming convention and I have all like 4 or 5 books all planned. And she's like, this is literally what she said. You need to take off your little like French beret artisan hat and listen to me, because I don't care what your naming convention is. the Instructor is what's going to sell books. And I went, you know what, Barbara? The Instructor it is. Good to go.
I just so want to see you in a beret now. I just
I think I have my old beret lying around somewhere, actually.
That's awesome. Funny. Okay. All right. So I get the privilege of introducing Gary Grossman. His first novel, Executive Actions, propelled him into the world of geopolitical thrillers. Executive Treason, Executive Command, and Executive Force further tapped his experience as a journalist, newspaper columnist, documentary, television producer, reporter, and media historian. Besides the best-selling Executive series, he wrote the international award-winning Old Earth, which is one of my favorites, by the way. And that really is a geopolitical thriller that spans a lot of time. And if you haven't read it, I would highly suggest you put that on your list. He also has the Red Hotel series, which he collaborates with Ed Fuller on, who we're also going to introduce, but Ed hasn't joined us yet, but we're sure he's going to get here as soon as he can. And so they write this series together. And maybe I should wait to introduce Ed until he hops on, you guys. What do you think? Yeah. Okay, so Gary, tell us about your latest with Ed and on your own.
Well, first of all, Tim, I was so moved by your explanation on the title, because I went through the same thing with the Executive series. I had another title and the publisher said, no, it's going to be Executive Actions. The next book will be Executive something, and the third one, Executive something. And the same way with the Red Hotel series with Ed Fuller. So I've been through that, and no matter how much we struggle over titles, we're not the ones really deciding. It's all about marketing. So they rely on us to write a good thriller. And what we try to do is know when to say yes, because they put it out. So Red Hotel is the first book in our Red Hotel series. Second came Red Deception, and now Red Chaos, all following a character who really is based on my collaborator, Ed Fuller. I met Ed Fuller through a friend of mine, Bruce Fierstein, who wrote the first 3 James Bond movies with Pierce Brosnan. We were both walking our dogs, and Bruce said, "You've got to meet this guy. He's the former president of Marriott International, and he's got stories to tell." And I said, "Well, first of all, I haven't collaborated with anyone on books. I do for television, but I haven't on books. And second of all, what do I have in common with the former president of Marriott International, except for maybe my Marriott awards card?" And he said, "You've got to meet with him." And I did. And within 30 seconds, I realized Ed was as much in the anti-terrorism business as the hotel business. Marriott and Ritz hotels blown up in Jakarta. He had to get his team out of Cairo at the fall of Mubarak. Likewise, out of Tripoli when Gaddafi fell. So he had stories to tell. I write them. Together we collaborate them. My dog just walked in the room. I'm surprised he's heard these stories before. And Red Chaos in the third in the series really continues to follow Ed's experience. I did ask him when we first met who he had on speed dial. And he said, "Well, maybe we work long enough and I'll tell you." Oh. And they are people within the CIA and intelligence organizations around the world. And Red Chaos, and I'll do what you did, hold up a copy. Red Chaos is already out in Audible and in Kindle. And the print edition, they're restocking Amazon and Barnes & Noble right now. But it follows... it follows a really bad guy in Russia who is our stand-in for Putin. And he is somebody who is controlling the Northern Sea route. Why? Because that's how he's getting oil to China. Money from China fuels our leaders, or Russia's leaders' exploits in Ukraine and in Eastern Europe and elsewhere around the world. So it's a mix between what's happening globally, those butterflies flapping their wings in China, affecting what's happening in the United States, with an assassin rolled in as well, and no good coming from Moscow.
Wow.
Our lead character is is the head of a hotel, is the international head of the hotel chain, who does have those real contacts that Ed Fulker has.
Oh, wow.
Fascinating.
Yep.
So we'll get to talking about what it's like to work in a tag team, but I'm so fascinated by that too, and how you guys just found each other and thought, yeah, we can do this together. So love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, I have a question for Tim. You say upstate New York. Where in upstate New York? I'm from Hudson in Columbia County.
I will not, the intelligence officer in me will not divulge my exact location, but I will say that I am in the Finger Lakes region.
Oh, really upstate? Oh,
Yes.
I'm ashamed. I'm not. No. Go ahead.
Like
Yeah, I mean,
really
I grew up in Rochester, New York, which is even
What?
further
Wow.
upstate. I know we've got 3 upstaters here. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Oh, wow.
That's
Yeah.
another similarity. That's so crazy.
I know.
So where's everybody coming from today? Well, you know where I know, and Gary, you're out in California.
I'm in California. Yes, in LA, which sees a lot of snow right now.
I'm in South Dakota.
Not as much
same.
as Kathy. She's in South Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah, Karen, where are you coming from?
Arizona.
Oh, lovely.
Oh.
It's not snowing here, although it was last week.
Was it really?
So strange. Everything's strange.
Everything is strange.
And Tim, you're in New York.
I'm still in New York, yes.
And it's
Trying
not snowing
desperately
there,
to get
is it?
out of it, but yeah, I'm still here.
And I'm in South Florida, so no, we did not see any snow.
Okay.
It's record
As
heat
she-
right now. So.
Which she reminds me of almost daily when we talk.
Yes. Sorry. Anyway, let's get on with our introductions. And I want to talk about Karen because we were asking her questions, but nobody knows who she is. So Karen Odden is a USA Today best-selling author who received her PhD in English from NYU, which was where our sound engineer went, writing her dissertation on Victorian literature, and taught at UW Milwaukee before writing fiction. She sets all her mysteries in the 1870s London. Her 5th, Under a Veiled Moon, features Michael Corrigan, a former thief turned Scotland Yard inspector. It was nominated for both the Agatha and Lefty Awards. Great. Karen lives in Arizona, where she loves to hike in the desert while plotting murder. So I can't say it's timely, but it might be the themes. But it's set way back in history. So tell us a little bit more about your book.
So, well, first of all, just FYI, my last name is pronounced Odden, kind of like the Norse god who ripped an eyeball out of his head in exchange for power.
Okay.
So just think of that when
well,
you see me.
I'm glad
Yeah,
that I'm
memorable.
glad that I said it wrong so that we had that memorable description on the podcast.
That's awesome.
So, Miss Odden.
Yes. So, yes, as you said, my inspector is Michael Corrigan, and he is Irish. He grew up in the seedy section of Whitechapel during the 1860s and 70s. Most people know Whitechapel because it's where the Jack the Ripper murders happened in the 80s.
Ooh.
And his mother vanishes. His father dies early, and his mother actually vanishes when he is 11, and he becomes a thief on the streets. And eventually a dock worker, a lighter boat worker, a bare knuckles boxer. Some of this is very illegal. And then he ends up having to flee Whitechapel. He's bare knuckles boxing, and the owner of the bare knuckles club comes to him and says, you need to throw a match. And he says, why? I win all the time. He says, yes, no one will bet against you, and I'm not making any money. You need to throw a match. And Corrigan is 19, and he gets in the ring, and he means to do it, and he just can't bring himself to do it. And so the bare knuckles boxer, head of the gang, throws him out, and basically threatens to kill him. And so
Okay.
he flees. He flees across the Thames River. And the Thames, for me, became the symbol that divides Corrigan's early life and his thieving and his bare knuckles boxing, all this kind of thing, and his later life. He becomes a constable in Lambeth, a uniformed constable, and then eventually works his way up to being a inspector at Scotland Yard. And the first book in the series, Down a Dark River, finds him at the yard, and he is faced with the death of a murdered woman who is beautifully dressed, young, lovely, and placed in a boat and sent floating down the Thames River. And that is the first book in the series. And then this is the second, and it was based on a true story. The good thing about Victorian England is there's so much terrible stuff going on that you barely have to invent anything. And in this one, we have a steamship. And I didn't, until I started researching, I didn't realize that there were steamships in London. I kind of think of that as a Mark Twain, kind of thing on the Mississippi, but there's a whole group of them, and they were like our hop on, hop off buses. You could pick up a ship, a steamship right by London Tower Bridge, and for 2 shillings, and ride all day out to the North Sea and come back. And one night in September of 1878, the little steamship, the Princess Alice, was coming around a blind curve, and a 900-ton iron-hulled coal carrier rammed into it. This is sort of like an express train hitting a hansom cab, and breaks the little wooden steamboat up into 3 parts. It sinks in 4 minutes, and 650 people are in the water, and nobody knows who they are. So that's how the book begins.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it goes on to some international intrigue. Well,
Okay,
not
all
international.
All of our faces were all like,
I know. We're like, okay, this is not good. We're talking big
Fantastic.
themes here. That's what all of these stories are, dealing with big themes. And so that makes us wonder, like, now, Gary, you've told us that you based yours on Ed. And so I'm assuming that's how it grew into the big themes, because he had those big themes. But like, Karen, how did you narrow down, or did you just say, I'm going to go big on this one? Or did you say, okay, this guy's going global, sort of?
Well, I don't know whether this is kind of normal, but I often find that my books sort of begin with a moment of surprise, which was the discovery of Princess Alice, which I didn't know anything about. I was halfway through writing Down a Dark River, and I came across a mention of the most terrible disaster ever to happen on the Thames. And of course, I had to Google that. And then together with the incredible, vitriolic, absolutely horrifying anti-Irish discrimination that I was finding in 1850s and 60s London. I mean, it was vicious. It was disgusting. And so you put those two things together, and what my what if question was, what if the newspapers, after this terrible accident happens, what if the newspapers jump to the conclusion that it's the Irish Republican Brotherhood? Now, this was a real group. They did not, in fact, cause the disaster. But I said, what if the newspapers jumped to that conclusion? It was a group that was trying to bring the Irish Parliament back to Dublin from London, because the few Irish men in the Parliament they weren't able to make their voices heard. They were a minority in Parliament, and English Parliament was just not paying attention to Irish concerns, including things like the potato famine. So I put these two pieces together, and I really wanted to talk about discrimination, and I wanted to talk about media storms. London had 1,000 newspapers by the 1890s, and sometimes they were just picking up each other's headlines and reprinting them. This is, the equivalent of
Well, that does sound timely, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. And Tim, so this is your first novel, and this is the first with this character. How did it come to you? And don't tell us that you're like really him running some kind of terrorist group or anything.
On the weekends.
Again, I can neither confirm nor deny. The funny thing about how Derek came to me is through a work colleague who is a retired Marine and is a wilderness survival expert. And we're 2 veterans just kind of sitting around the water cooler one day, swapping stories. And he relayed to me how he almost had his own show out in Hollywood, much like Survivor Man and Bear Grylls and everything. But the producers kept wanting him to divulge his stories from his top secret classified background, and he refused to do it. So they said, well, without those stories, you're just a house dad that teaches survival. That's boring. So I told him, I said, if you need a backstory that you that you could kind of pitch to these guys that's really interesting, that you could say like, oh, you know, it wasn't really me, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge, it might have been. I'll write you a backstory. And you know, it was just kind of a toss away thing, because I was writing fantasy at the time, and I was dabbling in short stories, and I said, I'll just, you know, I'll write you a 5,000 word short story that you can use as your backstory pitch.
Awesome.
And 90 days and 90,000 words later, there was my first draft of the Instructor, and the rest, as they say, is history. So
Wow.
that's how the character came about. In terms of like the themes, you know, that I think international terrorism is well covered in the thriller genres, and especially in the military thriller subsector. But domestic terrorism is something that I think we here in America have only really experienced in limited quantities. You know, Oklahoma City comes to mind, and things along that nature, and a testament to our intelligence and law enforcement services that have kept that from us. But there's this kind of, you know, obviously a wide divide in the country, and this also theme of military veterans that are disenfranchised after the Iraq-Afghanistan wars, and are primed for extremism and being kind of turned against the country that they once served. And I just thought, what a wild concept would be to put this right in our own backyard, and really pit Derek against those same individuals that, you know, might have at one time worn the uniform and swore to uphold the Constitution, and now are dead set against tearing it up and burning it down. And that's where I went with it.
You know, I just love that story on how you started, you know, because that's often how it happens, where somebody's like, you know, dabbling in writing, and then all of a sudden they get some kind of fun spark like that. And now that makes me wonder, Gary, you're a few books in. What was that first spark in the first book?
Well, it's an interesting story for sure. By day, primarily, I've been a TV documentary producer, had a production company called Gary Grossman Productions, and we did tons and tons of shows for A&E and History, Discovery, TLC, National Geographic, and on and on and on. And my business partner and I were in New York, and I remember the date specifically, pitching to the History Channel. And someone at the History Channel said during the meeting, wasn't me, "Do you think we're running out of history?" I was somewhat flabbergasted, but I didn't want to show it so much. But I said, well, you know, of course we won't be. Who knows what's going to happen later today or tomorrow? I think what they were looking at was whether or not reality TV was going to come in. Well, I remember that date because that was September 10th, 2001. No. And 2 days later, Rob Weller and I were driving back to California. We got a car out of Westchester County Airport, one of the few that were left, and started driving cross country. And I thought, well, if that plan took however long to matriculate, for it to come together since the previous attack on the World Trade Center towers, 7, 8 years? What about a plot that might take 25 or 30 years in the making? You know, we have the patience of a gnat compared to the Middle East and the rest of the world, and China, which has, you know, I think 100-year plan to really control everything. And if we don't make a movie a hit over the weekend, it's gone. And I used to be a rock DJ. I'm not going to do the rock DJ voice for you right now. Well, maybe.
Okay, come on, it's a podcast.
If a song wasn't a hit, you know, right away, it's kind of off the chart. Well, what about a plot that might take 25 or 30 years? And what would be so important to wait for that? And I thought the presidency itself, with a Russian sleeper cell spy taking over the White House. that was the subject of the first book, Executive Actions. And after that, I was often running, thinking, I have to do this again. I want a sequel. It was hard enough to do it the first time. I've got to do it again. And gradually the books have taken over. The TV side has faded more into the background. I still do some. But for an origin story for me, it was, how do I do it? How do I write it? And it still is today. And I'm impressed, Tim, 90 days, first draft.
I know, that's
I want to work up to that. My goal is 3 to 5 pages a day. And it does add up, though. It really does add up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To be fair, I was a man obsessed. I shunned all responsibilities and relationships during that time. So
this is what I was going to ask. Yeah. People love hearing how writers write. I think it's such a. I mean, Christie and I are both writers, and so we love it too. But our listeners who are readers and not writers, everyone loves to hear about how writers do the work. And so, Tim, I'm going to throw it to you. What you did in that fever dream of those 90,000 words, did any of that carry over into book 2, how you worked? And do you have more of a pattern now, or how do you write? What's your pattern?
So my 2 main approaches is, one, I have to write chronologically from beginning to end of the story. I don't like doing the piecemeal, grabbing scenes and then trying to mesh it all together. Hats off and all the credit in the world to authors that can do that. My brain doesn't work that way. The other part of it is I write very visually, in that I imagine myself sitting in a movie theater, and the scene that I'm watching in the movie is exactly what's being put down on the page. So I will have maybe a level of detail in my movements and actions of my character, because I want you to see the specifics, not just Derek, punches the guy in the head. It's, Derek throws a right hook and then ducks down and throws a left into the midsection. And, that very specific set. Now, because of circumstances and the way things were just kind of going in my life at the time, book 2, I actually did write out of sequence. I did not write chronologically. It was complete departure from my process. And not only that, I decided to take on dual plot lines in dual time frames, where it jumps from present day to 2007 Iraq, between 2 different characters back and forth. So it was a hot mess. It was all over the place. It was crazy. I have sworn off ever doing that ever again, but it was the most ambitious project I ever undertook, and I'm quite happy with how it came out so far. So, fingers crossed that my editor thinks the same, but yeah, that's my process and how it translated from 1 to 2.
Gary, I saw you nodding during part of when you were talking about the cinematic effect.
Absolutely.
How do you write?
I try to write cinematically. It's much of what my business is, and that is a feedback that I get from a lot of readers, that it does feel like a movie. And I talked about pace before, the pace of the world. We're writing, I think, faster paced books these days than people did years ago, even in the historical genre. Be interested, hearing what Jen said. So that's really important to me as well. And working in multiple periods, I do that too. I go back and forth. One other thing, in terms of process, in LA in particular, there are writers at every Starbucks writing. They're doing their screenplays, they're working on their books. I have a rule: I do not write at Starbucks. I do not. But there's a restaurant down the street called El Coyote, and I'll write there because they have margaritas. And no matter what I'm writing, it just feels so much better. And one day when I was actually rewriting there in the afternoon, I saw another writer with a computer, and we began talking. And he said, you know, we're not the only two writers who have written here. I said, oh, who else? He said, in the golden age of television, Rod Serling used to come in here and write
really?
with his portable typewriter.
No.
So I just felt
You're like,
it's hollowed ground.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Better
then the
than that
margarita
a
doesn't
random Starbucks for sure.
hurt. All right, Karen, we're all curious now. Talk to us about your habits and what works for you. And
Well, I think it's very interesting that all three of us write sort of cinematically. I think it must be an upstate New York thing. So, so I remember the very first time it happened. I was writing A Lady in the Smoke, which originally began as The Viscount's Daughter. And I'm laughing too about your title issues, because it was The Viscount's Daughter for a long time until it found an editor and who found a marketing team. And the marketing team said, absolutely not. No, that's a terrible title. It sounds like a bodice ripper. Nobody will know how to pronounce Viscount. They'll say Viscount, you know, the whole, anyway, we went through no joke, 20 titles. And it got to the point where my agent, Josh, was like, oh, just call it Choo Choo Go Boom. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. This way he still calls it. Wait, but the very, very first time I had that sort of movie sensation was when I was writing that book. And I had probably, I don't know, I was probably on draft 50 or whatever it was. And I had my heroine, Lady Elizabeth, was walking into a room, and Tom Flynn, my very pugnacious newspaperman, is standing there. She doesn't trust him because a newspaperman had ruined her best friend's life, basically. And he doesn't trust her because he knows she's lying about who she is. And she walks in, and he's standing there, and he's got his hands, you know, in fists in his pockets, and he's around the back of a chair, and she's around and I watched them. I watched them move and talk, and I just scribbled it down as fast as I could, because at that point, you know your character so well that they can, it's almost like a movie that someone else has produced, and you're just sitting there scribbling. And that's a really marvelous feeling. It doesn't happen. That's not like what it is all the time, but when it does happen, it's, you know, kind of in that wonderful zone you love. But, you know, writing historical fiction, as you mentioned, I did my PhD in Victorian Lit. I have a nice big foundation for Victorian, you know, fun factoids, historical tidbits, all that really good, juicy stuff. And when I'm beginning a book, usually I just kind of keep digging sort of in that direction, find some curious thing like the Princess Alice disaster, or this enormous fire that raged in Victorian England for 3 days in Mayfair and destroyed $60 million worth of artwork. I mean, you find a factoid like that, and I throw it in the pot, and then I find some more factoids and I throw them in the pot, and then I throw in a couple characters that I've been thinking about, and probably some of my own, you know, baggage and backstory, and throw that in there, you know, and then mix it around for a while. And usually I can get that first surge of 5,000 words, and I know where I'm headed. It's the middle that takes the time for me. And I do have to write sequentially, like you. I can't do this whole scrambled thing. I have some friends who write like that. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all do? I find that I'm backfilling as I go forward. I'm often backfilling and putting seeds in that just I didn't even realize. I didn't think I needed, but a new character comes in.
Right.
You know, it's like knocks on the door, says, "Gary, move over. I got something to tell you." Start going with that, and then I realize I have to backfill, and that's magic. That's just a wonderful part of the creative process.
No, it is fun when you have a new character that comes up, and then you're like, oh, they could really do something back here. Let's throw them in, you know.
That's so cool. Okay, so Christie, we're about midway. It's time for her. Christie has a lovely selection of random questions we call the question in the bottle. It's usually kind of a question you might want to get to at the bottom of a bottle, which we've done many times.
Like scenes from a hat in whatever what's the show? I'm blanking on it. Now it's the first thing to go, by the way. Whose line is it? Whose line is it?
Oh. Whose line is it? Okay. Well, this is kind of a fun one. Not too hard. Would you rather run at 100 miles per hour or fly at 20 miles per hour? I know which one I would do.
Well, I'm a
Oh, I
Superman
gotta
fan.
pick somebody, I guess.
Okay.
Gary's ready. Gary's
Go,
got an
Gary.
answer.
Yeah,
I'm like,
Gary's got an
wait,
answer.
we got some dead air there.
My first book was on the old Superman TV show with George Reeves. So I guess ever since I was a kid and put a cape behind me, I'd want to fly. But aerodynamically, 20 miles an hour is kind of hard to stay up there.
Mhm.
Well, you'd be like a hovercraft or something. What about you, Karen?
I think I'd probably like to run 100 miles an hour just to see what that felt like. And what just jumping to my head is, so I hike, and every year there's a group of about 20 girlfriends, and we hike the Grand Canyon down and up in one day, 16 miles.
Wow.
It's a really big hike. It's because it's 1 mile, it's 5,000 feet drop and then 5,000 feet back out.
What a cool tradition.
It's fun.
Well, she's
yeah.
explaining why it takes her whole day to do 16 miles, and I'm like going, no, that on level ground, it would take me a whole day to do 16 miles.
But there are people who actually run rim to rim to rim. And
Wow.
I mean, they don't do it at
Yeah.
100 miles an hour, but I mean,
Are you sure?
some of them are covering like 50 and 60 miles and
Oh
in a
my
day.
gosh.
And
Wow. Yeah.
so yeah,
I think that's a little insane. I don't
yeah,
know.
it is.
All right,
Tim?
Tim.
So I fly. I don't care about the speed because you didn't say anything about how high I could go. So if I just be suddenly cruising around the observation deck on the Empire State Building or the Freedom Tower, and that'd be great. The funny thing about that is that I'm deathly afraid of heights, and this is coming from a guy that is paratrooper qualified.
What?
Yeah, I did my 5 jumps and got my airborne wings, and then resolved to keep my feet on the ground for the rest of my natural life. But if I didn't have any fear of like falling to my death, then yeah, I'd just fly everywhere. It'd be great. I wouldn't be afraid anymore. So,
How did you do that first jump?
how did I do it?
How?
They pushed him probably, right?
Well, there's only so many windows on a military aircraft, so you can't really see what you're getting into until you're out the door. So
Okay.
that was one part. But the other part is the one thing I hate more than heights is losing. And it was indeed a challenge to and going into some other things. I was the number 1 ranked cadet in my ROTC program at the time. And I had a lot of, people chomping at the bit to take that mantle from me. And going out that door was a way to ensure that I stayed on top. And so, that overrode.
That's ultra competitive.
fear.
I don't
Oh,
care
yeah,
if
yeah.
I
That's amazing.
die, I'm
Yeah.
gonna stay on
I'm
top.
gonna follow up to Karen. So was the first jump the worst, or was the second? Which was the worst of the 5?
Okay, so I went 4 times out of a C-130, which is a propeller plane. And my 4th jump was out of a C-141, which is a jet engine plane, a substantially larger jet engine plane. And when I went out the door on the 141, I actually mistimed my steps. So instead of jumping out, I kind of fell out the door. And the power from the jet engine washed me back against the plane, sent me tumbling. And in military parachuting, you have a ripcord, so your chute automatically opens, and your reserve chute is what you would manually pull if you got screwed up. Well, my chute got all tangled. I fell like a brick, but they teach you how to like resolve these things. So I'm sitting there untangling my chute, just thinking nothing of it and everything. And the first thing you do when you get your chute open is you look up to make sure there's no holes, there's no wires broken. And I look up, I'm like, okay, everything looks good. My chute looks good. I look down and there's the ground, and just wham, just hit it like going. I opened it just enough to not cause any severe damage, thank God. But I did tear my meniscus in my right knee when I hit.
My God.
But the funny thing about airborne school is they say that in order to get your wings pinned on you, you have to just exit the plane 5 times. So it doesn't really matter what your status is when you hit the ground on number 5. You've qualified because you've gone out. So I basically had my buddies in the class hide the fact that I had a torn meniscus in my knee. And they kind of like surrounded me as we ran to the airfield the next morning. And I jumped with a torn knee and got my wings on the 5th one. So
there's no way I would.
Highly competitive and very determined at the right young age of 19 years
I
old.
am enjoying watching all of our faces as you're telling this story. We're all like, I mean, we're all just pained.
I mean, you do crazy things.
And thank you for your service over and over again. I don't even know. That seems ridiculous.
Just listen to play back that paragraph that was, I'm falling like a brick and looking up and thinking nothing of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it's a wonder that you write cinematically.
The guys and gals were actually yelling at me, pull your reserve, but I didn't hear them. I was just focused.
Are you naturally a very calm person?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
I mean,
that was wild. Great question, Christie.
Okay. Oh man.
Okay, so I'm back to writing. So I would love to know, you're all in different stages of this lovely endeavor. What about the writing life or publishing part of the writing life has surprised you the most or been the most joyful, and what has been the most challenging? Karen, why don't you start us off?
The most joyful is actually pretty easy. I have met some astonishingly warm, generous, smart, fantastic people doing this. People who invite me to their book clubs, or I mean, I actually did a luncheon today. I was the keynote speaker for this author's luncheon. Librarians, booksellers, I mean, all different kinds of people. And I've met enough authors that I have 5 beta readers. We kind of all exchange work, and that makes me feel very supported by them. I think the thing that's been difficult for me is that I was orphaned twice. So I was orphaned. My editor at HarperCollins left for her dream job at Hachette. I certainly don't blame her, but and so that was sort of the end of that. And then most recently at my current publisher, I was brought in, and my editor left and took a different job, and that's hard. And I think that what I tell, emerging writers is, obviously, these things happen, and you just got to kind of keep remembering that I'm writing because I love writing, and I'm just going to keep on writing. And, after my editor abandoned me at HarperCollins, that was when I came up with the idea for Inspector Corrigan, and it felt like the most solid idea that I'd ever had. So, sometimes the having to, feel like you're pushed all the way back to start, and, but sometimes it works out. And I think the big thing is just to keep on writing.
Okay. Good, solid
Gary,
advice.
What about you?
I as I even tell my students, and I teach writing at Loyola Marymount University out here in LA, a couple of classes a semester. And if I were to think about having to write a book, it would be impossible. How could I write a 400-page book or a 350 or 500, whatever it is? It's impossible. I can't even imagine doing that. But it goes back to what we talked about before. It's how much you can write in a day, and how much you can write in a week and a month, and how it begins to add up. And that's one of my processes in terms of thinking about it. The other is I work on multiple books at the same time, which is just nuts. I do have to make sure that a character in one doesn't pop up in another. But the thing that I find that works for me, and some of them are nonfiction and others are fiction, I work in different rooms. so that the characters in the stories, there's one set right here where I'm working in my office. I'll work in the living room on another. I'll work in the guest bedroom on the other. My wife is wondering, do we have any rooms that are still ours instead of all of them being yours? But and Stephen King, I understand, does that too. It's about the only thing I have in common with Stephen King. Very, very successful. Maybe he has a margarita once in a while, but that's one way I honestly am able to keep things straight. And it's just kind of putting things in a box and figuring out, okay, it's like I'm going to a different office. So that's part of the process for me. And in the case of working with Ed Fuller in the Red Hotel series, and particularly Red Chaos, which is out now, we talk about story. We talk about plot development, then I do the writing, and then he wants to see it. And often I'm saying, can you wait? Can you wait? Can you wait? Because I want to fill in more, or I, want to rewrite. Yeah. But it's the collaboration where then he says, oh, I've got another story to tell you. Let me tell you how people were saved from these terrorists when we hid them in dryers in a hotel.
Oh, wow.
From terrorists coming into the hotel. That's going to be in Red Ultimatum, the fourth book.
Wow.
Okay. Interesting.
So the stories are wild, and that's where my inspiration comes from. I'm also with Karen. You find a nugget in history and you go with it. And it's so interesting that you can weave those things in. These are great questions.
Love it. All right, Tim, we're ready. Excited. Oh, Karen, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to add one thing to what Gary said. That I think that's the whole idea of, oh my God, I can't write a book 400 pages, and I think that's one of the things that NaNoWriMo is good for, because when I work with emerging writers, they say to me, oh, I only get to about page 20. I said, you know what? Do NaNoWriMo. You'll get 50,000 words down. Okay, they're not going to be 50,000 fabulous words, but you will at least have the experience, and I think it works its way into your bones that by the end of the 30 days of November, you've got a stack of pages. And, you're 3/4 of the way there. You can finish it, right? You just need another couple, like another 20,000 or so, and you've got a first draft of a book. And I think that's what's, I recommend, writers who are having a tough time kind of getting over that hump. I recommend that.
You know what would work even better is if they paid you at NaNoWriMo.
Oh, that would be nice too.
Because I find that I like the premise of it, but I always don't make it past, like, say, November 5th. And then I'm like,
That's hilarious. All right, Tim, give us the pros and cons of your new endeavor here.
And I second Karen's sentiment there. I'm a nano veteran myself. So, and actually, believe I worked on the Instructor, at least expanded it during that time period, one of them anyway. But so the joy of where I'm at is just the sheer fact that I'm here. The fact that I often say to people, I had 3 dreams in life. One was to be an Army officer, 2 to be a father, and 3 to be a published author. And the second one, being a father, that's more of the dream, but which of course I have 2 beautiful daughters, so that dream came true. But the other 2, while they're dreams, they also doubled as goals. Like I could tangibly achieve those. Who knows whether I would ever get married and have kids, but in terms of becoming an Army officer, in terms of becoming a published author, as long as I put the work in, I believe that I could get there, and I could get to both. And having the feeling of achieving one of those dreams, now all 3 have been achieved, but that to me is the most absolute joyful thing about this whole process. Is just I always said I want to see my book, even if it's a one-off, even if people read it and say it stinks and this guy's never going to write another book in his life, whatever. My book was on that shelf, and for posterity, people will be able to say, wow, Tim Hendricks, he wrote that book that's on the shelf. You can find it. It's in a library somewhere. I mean, that's just it kind of like immortalizes you in a way. And I've just been enamored with that my whole life. So again, 4 or 5 weeks away from it becoming, a reality. It's just crazy to me. In terms of challenges, and I'm sure my fellow authors here will back me up on this one. I was just blown away by how much non-writing stuff you have to do to be a writer. I mean, website design and social media marketing and writing blog posts and doing newsletters and everything, and just constant commitments to the point where it actually infringes on your time doing the writing. So you have to be very disciplined in that approach. And luckily I'm good at like task prioritization and finding the time, even now with like life being as crazy as it is, being able to, organize and find those pockets where I can sit down and knock out 1,000 words or whatever. But yeah, that was really kind of a surprise. The rookie debut Head in the Clouds writer was very much like, oh, I'm just going to write a book and it'll be beautiful and wonderful and they'll publish, and I'll turn it in and I'll never have to make edits because they have people that just do that for you. And then,
right.
I really like, I thought going traditional, it's like, oh, well, you just write the book and then an editor edits it for you. And then a publicist publicizes it for you. And then,
right.
And then they're like, no, rookie, here you go. You got to rewrite.
Here's your list of podcasts.
Yeah, you're going to read this thing 7,000 times. You're going to rewrite it 5,000 times.
I know.
And all while you're doing that, you're juggling everything. I say that with a grain of salt because it's all part and parcel to getting here, right? To the joy part of it. Like that's the work in today's day and age that it takes to be an author. And if you're willing to do it, I think you can get there. So is it challenging? Yes. Is it worth it? 100%. Absolutely.
Good.
I love hearing the joy. I mean, when you talk about that, achieving that dream and that goal, that's what people want to hear. And then the fact that is your experience, even with the realities, that's really lovely.
Yes.
It's magic seeing your book on a shelf. It's absolute magic. You feel like a kid in a candy store. And we are, because you want to enjoy that part of it. But Tim, you were so right. When we're writing, we need to be promoting. When we're promoting, we need to be developing. When we're developing, we need to be researching. And then we still have to write again, today. Yep.
There's not enough hours in the day.
I was just on vacation at a very warm place, not at all like the snow that is coming here, a beach vacation. And I hadn't been for a long time because of the last few years. And I was so thrilled, literally, to see every single person around that pool or on the beach with a book. They weren't on their phones. They were reading books. And I just thought, either I found my people, I'm not sure, but it was so cool to see everyone reading. And I thought, that's why writing is so awesome, right? So someone is on vacation, they're taking the time out of their life to take a minute, and what are they choosing to do is to have their adventure that a writer is giving them. And it renewed my joy of why I would like to be a published writer, and why we love talking to published writers, because how cool, right? Like that's what they're choosing to do during that special time of their life. I just thought that was really fun.
Yeah,
it was great. I thought it was the most
you said it right,
I've ever been
Kathy.
to. I don't know.
Well, this has been very inspiring, and I do have we have like one that's a good note, I think, to end on, but we have a final question that we've come up with, and Kathy's shaking her head. I'm thinking maybe we start putting these together and I will write the book. This will be an inspiration. But anyway, Cathi and I, this is the premise. Cathi and I are starting a crime fighting team, and we want you to offer us one of your characters for a spot on our GOB squad here. So which would you volunteer, and what would their role on the team be? And you could kind of like, sometimes we can get it like where we're kind of complimenting each other. And I'm gonna make Gary go first on this.
Yeah, that gives Tim and Karen more time to think about this. Thanks a lot. Well, I'm a big believer. I love James Bond. I love Jason Bourne. But my dad was in law enforcement. My mom was in politics. And I firmly believe that we're not in a single hero world, that it does take somebody who knows something to tell somebody else who knows something, to tell the others and to convince others to make it work. And 9/11 probably would not have happened if people who, you're running a flight school and somebody comes in to say, oh, I'm interested in knowing how to fly a plane, I don't care about landing it, would that set off alarms,
Yeah.
So I believe it takes a real team. So I would put one of you in the FBI as facial
Oh, no, that's not how it works.
Oh, no?
You have to give us one of your characters. From your books, one of your characters is going to come work with us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
it doesn't matter
if Cathi and I are going to
No.
solve crimes, we need help from different characters. So one of your characters.
I will give you Ed Fuller, former president of Marriott International, because you'll probably get free hotel rooms every
I would
year.
love that.
Perfect.
And he's has to obviously have the best stories.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. And he's hiding from us right now. So he's very good at being secretive.
time.
And okay, Tim, what can you add to us? We've got the hotel rooms.
I gave you time to think about it.
I mean, there really is only one option, and I've got to give you Derek. I mean,
Thank you.
Derek is former Marine Force Recon, so he's a special operations veteran. He's a qualified human intelligence and counterintelligence officer with real world experience. He's built like a linebacker, so and
Is he single? That might help.
Okay. He is. He's divorced, so he's got a little bit of that baggage.
All right,
but,
there you go. This is rounding out the book for me. There you go.
But yeah, he's a handsome guy. He's got a pension, so he's good to go. And then rounding it out is you could just basically drop them in the middle of the woods and they'll be able to live off of bark and tree sap for weeks on end. So I mean,
but he won't need to because he will be with us.
Well,
and
right,
we
yeah.
cook.
So you guys
Or
can,
sadly, we'd be with him.
So
oh yeah, that's true. But if we have to,
yeah, he's your Swiss Army knife. So
okay,
so there you go.
Sounds good. All right, Karen, round us out. Who else can we have?
Well, okay. So the problem is that Inspector Michael Corvin, his director at one point said, "You have all the tact of a rabid bear barreling through the woods." So I think that my protagonist and your protagonist, Tim, might butt heads. So what the person I'm going to give you is Belinda Gale, who is Michael Corvin's love interest. She is a woman novelist based on one of the women actually three of the women that I wrote about in my dissertation. There were women novelists supporting themselves by the pen at this time. Okay. And she is the EQ to Corvin's street smarts. She's insightful.
So she'll be a little bit of a spy, maybe.
Well, she's just very aware of the importance of things like listening carefully, empathy, paying attention to things people don't say. So I'm going to give you Belinda.
All right. Ooh, that sounds like we're going to solve the crimes, Cathi. We're going to solve all the crimes.
All of them.
Thank you, guys.
So when our listeners want to hear about you, where should they go? And we'll start with Tim because his book birthday is next week.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Or no?
Shoot.
3 weeks?
Something like that.
Yeah.
No, about 3-4 weeks.
Okay.
But who's counting?
I'm thinking you are.
So you can find me at trhendricksauthor.com. That's my website. And I'm pretty decent on social media. I'm on Twitter at tr_Hendricks. I'm on Instagram at readtrhendricks. And my daughters love to make fun of me, but they got me onto TikTok. So I am also on TikTok doing embarrassing videos of author stuff. I don't lip sync or dance, so you don't have to worry about that. But that is they'll goad me into that one too. But that is also the same handle as my Instagram at readtrhendricks. So drop on by. Love to hear from you, and hope you enjoy the Instructor.
Love it. All right, Gary, how about you? Where can people find you?
I'm at redhotel.com. Not the Red Hotel, but redhotel.com, and that's for all of the books. Instagram is Gary Grossman 1. And likewise for Twitter, Gary Grossman 1. I've not jumped into the TikTok realm yet. But I actually, in what I'm writing now, have a comment about TikTok from a member of the Chinese government who seems to know a lot about one American in particular and recommends that maybe it's because of a social media address that you have.
So maybe we should avoid TikTok, you're saying.
Yeah. Plus all the videos for a year, I produced America's Funniest Home Videos. So I don't need to... I don't need to be making them myself now, but
I love watching them though on TikTok.
They're still so much fun. In fact, I'm doing a biography of the producer, a nonfiction book on DeBona. Great. But redhotel.com is the place to reach me.
Awesome. Karen.
My website is www.KarenOdden. It's KarenOdden.com. And you can connect with me. My social medias and everything is all there. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I have not made the jump to TikTok. It kind of terrifies me. And and also I just wanted to mention I do have a newsletter that I would love for you to subscribe. It only comes out every 6 weeks. It will not clog your inbox, I promise. But it always includes a book giveaway, an essay by another woman writer. It's sort of my way of supporting my community. So if anybody would like to chime in for that, it's also filled with like historical factoids.
They can find that, sign up on your website, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just click the subscribe button.
We'll put the links on our...
we always recommend everybody sign up for any of your favorite authors' newsletters, because then you have that direct connection to them, and it's a big deal. So well, thanks you guys. This has just been a joy.
Yes, thank you so much. I think all we have to do is say cheers, and cheers to much success and lots of books on the shelf.
Cheers. And I think we have to declare Tim the winner, knowing he likes to win and needs to win. So Tim,
you won today.
Thank you very much. The competition was fierce. Yes, I appreciate
Gary,
Gary.
You're supposed to have said that with your radio voice.
Well, we got a winner today here. Let's see. It's a listener named Tim Hendricks. Tim, where are you from? Are you a first-time caller?
First time, long time, calling from Finger Lakes region. Yeah. I was really happy to be call number 9.
Let's say a giant shout out to Northern New York for giving us these great authors today.
Yes.
We should call a tourism board or something. I don't know.
I know. I'll link it on our social media.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Best to you all. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks
so much.
Appreciate it. Bye.